there's a way that we work to try in schools to try to get the room silent so that everyone can hear what is being said. My name is Dr. Johnny Thomas. I'm superintendent of schools for Rich Township High School District 227. And in advance, I want to thank you all for taking the time out of your busy evenings to hear some important information that we are here to share today. Assisting me with this presentation is Dr. Alicia Evans, who is the Assistant Superintendent of Business and Operations, and she's going to be assisting me in giving this presentation. Before we start, I'd like to thank a couple of people. Ms. Vanessa Glenn, who is the Superintendent Assistant who helps put all this together. Can we just give her a quick round of applause for putting it together? And Ted Thomas and his group in helping to get the technology up and going. For those of you who are new to our presentations, you're going to participate in something called the Thought Exchange. And the Thought Exchange helps us to gather information, your thoughts about what you hear here today. That information is then gathered as we continue to move throughout the community and give it to the board to help them make whatever decision they're going to make moving forward. So as you all are aware, we're here today to kind of talk about our facilities options. As a district, a few months ago, we have been on a journey to inform the community where we are with our facilities, with our demographics, and with our budget. We've been very transparent in that because we believe that the only way we can continue to provide a quality environment for our kids is if we have quality input and feedback from the community. And so the board has asked us to really work hard to put these forums together so that they have your voice as they try to make some very difficult decisions. Before I continue to move forward, I see I do have two board members in the room, President Randy Alexander, board president, and Sharon Newman, board secretary. They're both here today with us. So with our timeline, we talked a little bit about our demographics, and that over the next 5 to 10 years, our enrollment is going to continue to drop. Some of the highlights from that demographic piece, about 10 years ago, we were at about 4,000 students. As of at the end of the school year, this year, we were at 2,900. So as you can see, there's been a pretty significant drop in terms of the number of students that we have in our district. We also wanted to make sure that we were transparent in talking about our facilities. And so we enlisted the help of an engineering group, an outside engineering group, who went through every single nook and cranny of every building that we have to tell us what needs to be repaired, what needs to be fixed, what is critical in terms of being kind of a health, life, safety issue, and what things can we hold off on as we try to figure out how to improve our facilities. From there, we also shared information about our budget forecast. As a lot of you are aware, our state funding, a lot of our funding is based on the number of students that we have. So we've gone from 4,000 students to 2,900. There's also a cut to the budget that goes with that as well. And so, those things have helped to create a scenario that we have to be proactive with. Now, I'm not saying, and a lot of people have said, that the district is in financial crisis. The district is not in financial crisis, but we will be if we don't make some of these critical decisions. So I want to make sure that I say that up front. So after we had those presentations and we went out to the community to explain those things, we received feedback, kind of a similar way that you're going to give us feedback today, about what those next steps should be. And in that feedback, the summary was broken down, and there were a number of things that were recommended. And I'll talk about that a little bit in the presentation. So I gotta stay close. So this slide here gives you a sense of where we are in terms of our enrollment projections. And it shows the rate of reduction over the next few years, and it also shows it by school. So that kind of talks about the demographic study that we did. The demographic study took into account live birth rates. It takes into account the enrollments of our feeder schools, where they are, how many kids they have coming into our system. It was a very, very comprehensive report that was done in support of all of the feeders that feed in. So everyone had a similar report that was done. As I mentioned earlier, this slide here shows you the forecast expenditures for Rich Central in terms of repairs that are needed in the building. And so, as you can see, in the first 0 to 5 years, the critical things are in those years. The things that are less critical are spread out to the further years. So in the first 0 to 5 years, there's over $20 million in repairs in just 0 to 5 years needed at Rich Central. And then $6 million in 6 to 10, and an additional $13 million in from around 11 to 20 years. So that is a total projected cost of around $39 million. The replacement cost for the entire building is $40 million.
Are we supposed to see that
It's on the screen.
Because you can't see it.
We can't
see it. You can't see it.
Nobody.
You should hand out some.
I'll take questions at the end. Once we finish the presentation, we're going to ask you to do the thought exchange, and then we'll take whatever questions you have at the end of that piece. So, a very similar report that was done at Rich East. So at Rich East, in the first 0 to 5 years, we're looking at somewhere around about 58 million in projected repairs, and the building itself, as a replacement cost for the building, is at 42 million.
You said the replacement cost is 42?
Correct. Rich South, the cost for Rich South is one that is somewhat of an anomaly in that it has a $32 million repair cost that's needed, but the actual replacement cost is $42 million. So it is the opposite of the other two, where it's cheaper to get the things fixed needed for South than to replace the whole building. $32 million over the 20-year span. So in terms of net income, in terms of where we are as a district and our fiscal forecasting, as you can see, in 18-19, we have a projected revenue balance budget. In 19-20, that continues to be the case. And then you see the drop in 2021 that corresponds with the projected drop in enrollment. And it also states this trend is if we do nothing, if we make no adjustments. And so as you can see from there, it continues to drop to where you get to a point where you're in a severely damaged budget in terms of a deficit spending budget. And it is our job to try to make sure that we don't get to a scenario where we're in deficit spending. We want to make sure that we continue to balance the budgets. And that's why these discussions are so very important for us. It's important for us to be proactive. So as I stated earlier, you can see that right now we're fiscally fine. But if we don't make some decisions here soon, we could easily be in a deficit spending budget and some really severe cuts if we do nothing, if we keep everything as is. So I kind of talked about the timeline a little bit in terms of some of the work that has been done from December 11th to around January 11th. We've had discussions. We talked to students. We had discussions with staff. We had community forums, very similar to these community forums that we're having here now. And we have made sure that we had opportunities to get feedback at every step of the way. And we continue that process. This process is for us to continue to find out, get information from the community about how they feel about some of the things that are being presented. And then finally, we are here working to make sure that people understand that we have been out in the community trying to convey this message and talk about this in a proactive way. So here is a summary of the results of the work in terms of what those forums yielded for us. There were a lot of responses that said close one school. There were a lot of responses that said consolidate campuses. There were responses that said we need to make sure that we consider the enrollment trend and in particular try to find ways to see what we can do to revert some of that trend. And there was also a lot about more transparency in terms of being transparent about the process, where we are, and what we're doing. I know that there's been a lot of rumor out there about where the board is and about decisions that have been made, and they already know that is so far from the truth. We presented this information to the board, we gave them the summary, they asked us to come back with options based on those summaries. So we did that. We came back with options that we're going to show you this evening and go into more detail about those options, what they look like, and what the costs are associated with them. Once we conveyed that information to the Board of Education, their first response to us was, you need to take this out to the community and get feedback from them on these options. We want to hear what they think about these options. And they wanted us to gather that information in the thought exchange in terms of what you're going to be working on today. That is currently where the board is in their decision-making process. They are still gathering information to try to get a feel for what is the best decision based on feedback and input from the community. So now to go over the options, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Evans, and she's going to walk through each of the options and explain to you what those options mean and how they were developed.
Thank you very much, Dr. Thomas. Can everyone hear me? So, based on the information, we have 6 options to discuss tonight. The 6 options, if you picked up the information when you came in, may I borrow this for a moment? You can follow along with the options with me. There is one option, option 3, that has multiple options associated with it. When we look at the options, I will also present information so that you'll become more familiar with each option. Each option will provide you with cost estimates, the timeline for completion, financing options, and how it's going to impact your property tax bill. Can you hold the mic up? Yes. Yes, I can. I want you to understand that all options, with all of the options, your property tax bill will remain the same as it relates to this for 2 years. No changes for 2 years. Option number 1. This first option is just repairs to all of the facilities, no upgrades. Repairs only. The repair numbers are based on the information that Dr. Thomas discussed with you moments ago. And we would begin repairs in the summer of 2021. And we will repair all schools over time. And the total cost of those repairs and construction and the other cost would be $169.6 million. So I want to explain to you about what steps will have to be taken in order to go with this option. First, school districts can only borrow a certain amount of money. School districts have a statutory limit, and based on that statutory limit, we can only borrow under those conditions. If we need to borrow more than the district's statutory limit, we have to ask for a change in the state legislation in order to do that. So when I say in the future that any of the options may require a change in legislation, that is what I mean. That would be the first step. The second step would be to ask taxpayers if they are interested in their taxes increasing. And that is what is called a referendum. That is a question on the ballot. So in our future options, I will say whether or not it requires a referendum. The next thing that you will see on the financing slide will be the percentage increases in your property tax bill. And that's kind of what you're here to hear about. So in option number 1, it would require a change in legislation because the amount of $169 million exceeds our statutory debt limit. And after that step, we would then go out and ask the taxpayers, people in this room and others, if they want their property taxes increased in order to make these changes. The overall percentage in your tax bill would be 3%. The portion related to our school district would be 9%, and the percentage of the bond portion for our district would be 109% increase. $62 million. Option 2 would be to keep all buildings, all school buildings, to address the facility issues in option 1, and also to upgrade the facilities. This option is $399.5 million. It will begin in the summer of 2021 and end in the summer of 2027. All 3 schools would be upgraded. This will require a change in legislation. It will require a referendum. And the overall increase in tax bill will be 15%. The rich township portion will be 41%, and the bond portion will be 516%. Option 3 has 3 options. has 3 options because we have 3 schools. And in this option, what we're doing is we're consolidating to 2 schools and demolishing 1 school. The reason that you're seeing 3 options is because I wanted to make sure that you knew what each option was. In this option, we're upgrading Central and East and demolishing South. Those of you who don't know, we're in South right now. The total for that option is $285 million. Again, we will begin in the summer of 2021 and end in the summer of 2027. I call this option 3B. This one is where we're upgrading Central and South and demolishing East. The total for this option is $241 million. The same timeline applies. I call this option 3C. We keep East and South and demolish Central. Total amount for this is $282 million. All 3 options require a change in legislation. All 3 options require a referendum. And the ranges in the overall property tax bill is 7 to 9%. The percentage increase in the rich portion is 19 to 25%. And the increase in the property tax bond amount is 237% to 302%. Option 4. Option 4 would get us to 1 school site on existing property. So one of the sites that we have now would still be the site for the 1 school. It would house all 3,000 students. And we would demolish 2 schools.
Where would that 1 facility be?
I'm sorry?
Where would that 1 facility be?
If that's the option selected, then we'll determine what the site is.
Do your numbers include demolitions? Since you said demolish, do those numbers include how much it costs to demolish those buildings?
The question is, does it include the amount to demolish? Yes, it does. Cost for this option is $367.9 million.
Question. Is there more options on the table, or these are the only options? Because my question is, why wouldn't you just go down to 2 schools and do the repairs on those 2 schools?
That's option 2. I hear you.
Okay.
So, give me a second.
No problem.
I just don't want to start taking questions
Okay.
right now because they won't get.
Okay, no problem.
Okay. So, that is this option. It begins in the summer of 2021, it ends in the summer of 2025, because we don't have to worry about the students.
But that was that you're gonna have a new building to house that, like that's what I think.
Yes.
The clarity, okay.
It's a new building.
Okay.
This again will require a change in legislation and a referendum. Increase in the overall property tax bill is 14%. The percentage in the rich township portion is 37%. And the bond portion is 458%. Option number 5. In this option, there are 2 buildings. We built a new facility on an existing site. It will house 2,000 students. We will partially upgrade 1 site. For the purposes of this presentation, that site is south. Does it have to be south? But I chose south because it was the least expensive to renovate. If through our conversation, the thought exchange, you think it shouldn't be south, then we will change the numbers. Otherwise, I would have had to give you 3 options for this option. cost of that option is $288.2 million. These include the cost for demolition. This also requires a change in legislation. It also requires a referendum. Overall property tax bill increases 10%. The bridge portion is 25%, and the bond amount is 318%. Option 6. This option, there will be 2 buildings. One building will be the purchase of a facility. It will house 2,000 students. The next one will be the partial renovation of an existing site. As in the last option, the renovation would be south. Same idea applies. If we have some discussion, you say, no, it should be south, it should be something else, and then change the ownership. Again, south was chosen because it's the least expensive. Okay. Cost for this option, well, the timeline is the summer of 2019, which looks like 20 now. And the upgrade would last through 2023. The cost of this option is $105 million. This option does not require a change in the legislation. It does not require referendum. It does require some funding activity. First, we would do a lease purchase bond. We pay that off in the short term. Then we do some funding bonds, working cash bonds, in order to make this happen. Again, in this option, property taxes as it relates to this will remain the same for the first 2 years. In option number 6, after the 2 years, property tax bill increase will be 1%, the rich portion will be 3%, and the bond amount will be 32%. This is a summary, like this, just prettier, of the information. So now is where you come in. Now is where, yes.
I thought that was a signal for now I can ask a
One
question.
second. One second. Well, maybe more than 1 second. Now is where I need your help. So as we said earlier, we need your input. We've been working on this information since the fall of 2018, providing information to the Board of Education about all of the steps that we've taken so far. In December, we had our first thought exchange where we shared this information before, and we asked you for your input. We also got input from students and staff. We took all that information to the Board of Education, and they said we need to hear more from the community, which is why we're having these forums and is why we're talking to you now. So, in front of you, you have tablets. What I'd like for you to do is to consider the following questions. Of the options presented, which one do you find most favorable and why? And when you're answering that question, please indicate the number assigned to the option. Your tablets are ready to go. What? You don't have to jump.
So what about us without a calendar? We have no attendance?
And I don't see the, it's not giving me.
Have an opinion?
Everybody can have a
So just move on.
And I don't see the question.
The question is,
I appreciate your opinion.
what I also want to say to you is when you're in the exchange, you can enter your information, and you can see others' information, and you can star that information. That helps ideas roll to the top so that we can get the trends.
Do you need a code?
So you can't just start typing?
Hold on. The thought exchange is open from today through July 11th. You can go in as many times as you like during that time. You can see other people's thoughts from the upcoming forums, and you can star that information. If,
Go back.
if,
Your mic back.
This one back.
thank you.
Yeah.
If you are not here and you want to go into the thought exchange, there is a link on our website, but you can also go in through this link. If anyone needs any help, raise your hand.
It's not working.
It's not working.
Yes.
I just heard it back when you need somebody needs some bean, you can't type. So it's not that chart. It's not letting me turn it and show. Okay, so what you do?
If we click on that.
Yeah, because you didn't share anything. So
Yeah.
it thinks you're done.
First, we want to.
Did you put in like user ID and password and all that stuff? Type in.
I can't see it.
She's telling them to go to the website.
Yeah.
Up there.
Now,
Go to the website.
it's where it
Go up here.
So
Just go straight to the website. Oh, just yeah, put in the code there. And it's not doing it right.
it won't let me move backspace that out. So how do you? Or do you go up? Ah, stuck.
This is where you tell me about your signature.
Yep. Mine has that number already on it.
Yeah.
What if you go on it and hit enter?
I did.
Okay, can you backspace it out? Okay. So try it again. Do I have to put in all of that or just my thoughts? Try yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's just already has lost it.
you? You don't? Okay, okay.
I mean, not yet.
Younger?
She's less than a year.
Okay, okay. And it happens overnight, so. We're from District 210 because we're interested in everything that's happening here, but this reminds us of 15 years ago when Dr. Wiley was doing this at 210, and now we're in complete financial ruin because of all of it. Yeah. Well, 210 is Lincoln Way. Yeah. Yeah.
The school was having
Yeah. And the school, that they want to purchase or rent. He didn't give us. That's the school they want to purchase. Dr. Wiley only really gave us one option, so we didn't have it quite this nice, but he went around to everybody and, talked to everybody, and he said we need 2 new schools because it would be on both ends of the district. So to make people happy on the west side, build one there, and make people on the east side happy, build one there. The west didn't have the population yet, but the east side was overcrowded. So we all fell for this $225 million bond, and then the crash happened. They built the schools, but then the crash happened, and nothing grew on the west side, but they closed the one on the east side for political reasons.
So now they had to refinance the debt, and now the debt goes out. Right now we're paying like $16 million a year just in interest. It's going to go up to $42 million in 2033 by that time. So it's a street up. So keep an eye on the finances here.
Yeah, your finances are what you really have to watch them on, because they will just borrow and spend and not worry about it.
Were the kids on the east side being bused to the west side?
They're being bused to our school is Lincoln Way East. It's not all the way to the west side, but it's, I don't know, 3-4 miles farther, where most of them were in walking distance of the school. Now they're being bused to another school, and now that school is kind of overcrowded because they wanted to keep the feeders together. So we've got the west side is still not that full, and the east is kind of crowded.
It is already there. It is up to the community to decide if that's what's best for them or not. But I just want to make sure, at least from the rumor standpoint and the innuendo standpoint, it is there. If you've never been over there, it is an incredible place, and it is one that is deserving for our children. It is absolutely deserving of our children. And so I just want to make sure, at least from that standpoint, you understand, we didn't go searching for it. It butts up right next to our boundaries. If it was in that, it probably wouldn't be an option, but it sits right on our boundary. So I just want to make sure that at least for that option, you understand what some of those rumors and innuendos are and what happens with the financing. Now, there's always the other side too, right? They may say no. And so I need to know then what our backup plan is. As you can see, all of the other backup plans are very expensive. And so it's going to take planning and time for us to work through that. But that's what these forums are for, so that we can get as much information we can to help the board make a prudent decision. All right. So with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and start here, and I'm gonna work my way around to there.
Okay. My question is about a world picture of us in this tax situation. You're saying that we're going to pay under option 6. We're going to pay an increase in 1% tax.
After 2 years. No increase.
It won't matter if it's 2 years, 10 years, but what I'm going to ask. My question has to do with, is somebody do a factor to see how much it's gonna cost us to bus every one of those kids we have now that can walk to every one of these schools, and look at the devastation you're gonna have to these communities based on the way they're structured. That to me is more important, because I live here and I pay taxes. Yes, we have a lot of people who rent. And I understand that. So can you answer that part? Did you all look at that part of your equation?
Yeah, we have looked into what it would cost. You have to understand, consolidating down to two or to maybe even one school is a significant cost savings. We do understand that busing would increase our costs somewhat, but we already bus a ton of students all over anyway. That's already built into our budget. We would have a slight increase in that. The other piece that you ask about in terms of, we do and we are concerned about the impact of a school being removed from the community. We understand that. And we're trying to weigh that with the opportunities that are now created by having expanded programming and in-depth programming for kids that is now more attractive to people in the area. So we're trying, we definitely have thought about that. We're definitely trying to balance those things out. I know I had another question here.
Yes, my question, I have two questions. One, how did we get to this $400 million deficit, which is what we're looking at from the top end of it? Secondly, this school that you all are looking into, I inquired at that school some 8 years ago for my child to attend because I'm on Balmer, right off of Balmer. What I was told, while my child could not attend the school, everything was put in there but the N-word. Okay, I'm going to be honest, we got an open forum. I don't care, we can go any place else. I don't think we need to go there. It can be $102 million. We do not need to fund some school that rejected us in the past. Now, because they have a facility, God, you quote scripture, my God will supply our needs. He will make a way out of no way.
Basically what it is.
He's not giving us somebody else's stuff when they didn't want you in their house. No, he don't move me in your stuff when you rejected me. Now, I don't know how many parents in this cafeteria had children who wanted to attend, just like Southland. We pay taxes for that, but yet all our children were not open to attend that facility either. So now, the bottom line is we're going to look at, okay, let's get this facility for 106. Oh, this is going to cost us. Let's put all the big numbers here. How did we get here? How did we get here with our tax dollars through Park Forest, Richmond Park, Madison, that we're paying, and now we here at the midnight hour that we have this to deal with? No.
I want to make sure that because there was a lot there, it was more than a question. But I do want to make sure that everybody, I think, is aware of the history of this entire area, and I think even the schools that we're sitting in now, at one point in time, you weren't welcome in those schools either. So I just want to make sure that we don't.
That is not true. We built this school right here. No, that is not true. Untrue.
I just want to make sure that I want everybody to understand. I have a deed that says that we're not supposed to be in at least one of our schools. So I just want to have that deed.
You show us that deed.
I just want to make sure that we're realistic in what we're talking about. We need to keep the focus on the needs of our children. Right now, I have children who open their lockers up and there are roaches jumping out on them. There are students who have rain coming down on their heads and floods coming up in their schools.
Well, you need to deal with that.
And that's why we're here. The last option is just the last option. The other ones you can vote on. But I hear compounding interest in terms of the taxes associated with getting these buildings up to speed. and what options are out there that can meet all of those needs that you have concerns about. And so I just want to make sure that you understand that there's a balance to this. And I know I hear people saying, oh, his mind is already made up. It is not. It is not. And plus, it's not up to me anyway. But what I'm saying is there are options, and all options need to be considered thoughtfully.
I'm a Rich Central alumni. I graduated from Rich Central in 2000. I have two sons that attend Rich Central High School right now. One is an incoming freshman and one is a sophomore. When I look at these slides and the information that you are presenting, Mr. Superintendent, I am extremely disappointed. And the reason I'm extremely disappointed is because the presentation of this information, honestly, is meant to confuse and be very misleading. Very misleading. You are using, in one slide, you are saying we are looking at a forecast of decreased enrollment, and as a solution, you are saying, let's increase the taxes and buy a facility, or let's add on to a facility instead of simply repairing facilities. You just sit here and said that children are opening their lockers and there are rats coming out. You just said children are sitting in classrooms and rain is coming down on their head. It seems to me as a parent and as a professional that your first priority would to be make sure that the facilities that our children are in presently are fit for them to attend. Also, let me just say this. As an alumni and going through all of my years of school and within this community, there has never been any type of widespread camaraderie between the rich schools. So I really don't understand what thought process you all have that you all think that it would be beneficial to combine all of the students into one school, because you all can't even control the students at Rich Central right now. You all are treating these kids like they are in prison. And you all, what happens in this school, because I am an active parent, I do attend school, and frankly, this is my first time ever seeing you. And you saying that you have been out into the community and letting people know. This is my first time seeing you. But if you all cannot even control the children in one school and treating them like they are in prison, I have called my son, Mom, the school is on lockdown. We can't move. We can't come out of the classroom. I called the front desk and they acted like I'm calling prison visitation trying to get information on the inmates. I'm a parent. I'm not a visitor. I'm not somebody trying to contact somebody who is not mine. I'm calling to contact my children. I'm only saying that because you all are proposing this, and it seems like at first when you were talking, you didn't want to say legal wage, or you didn't want to actually mention the school. And I guess that's because of the negative feedback that's surrounding the demise of that school and why they couldn't keep the school open. And I guess that's why you kind of tiptoed around actually saying that's what you guys plan on buying. But if you cannot control the children in one school, how do you think that combining all of these children into one school, if the children are our priority, if they are really who are our priority, how do you think that is going to work out? You all have had, let's see, maybe 4 children die at Rich Central this year because of gun violence, and I'm not putting that on the school.
I just want to make sure, I don't want, that didn't happen at the school. Because they go to school there, I want to make sure that I dispel, because there are people here that are not from this area. And so I just want to make sure that people understand that the students died, they attended Central, but none of that violence occurred at Central.
And I never said that. And let's make sure that we're fostering an environment of respect while we're speaking here today. But what I said was 4 children who went to Rich Central lost their lives to gun violence this year. I never said that it happened at school. I never said the violence took place at school, and I don't expect the school to be able to manage that, but that just kind of lets us know that there is a lot of things that the nucleus of how these things start, even though that it may not happen in the school, starts within the school environment. You all are having trouble managing kids at one site and managing violence at one site. So my concern as I have two children who are in the first year of going to Rich Central. You all doing this in the next couple of years, and then I have a daughter who is going to be going to middle school. I'm very concerned, not about the politics and who stands to gain from this, because it's not the children. I'm really concerned about what's going to be happening day to day with our children who have to deal with the repercussions of the bad decisions that the district makes.
Thank you.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm a community activist parent like everybody else, and I don't want. I'm feeling like we are not here to attack the superintendent because he is doing and passing information along to us. This is information that is public information that we can all go out and get. I'm only standing up because I don't want my child to go to Rich South because of a bunch of reasons I have. But the main one is the curriculum here. And then the management of this building we aren't happy with. The teachers don't love on our children and they get treated different from one building, depending on this building, depending on this building. I am an educator. I go over there and I paraprofessional across the expressway, and then I come over here and I fuss because y'all are not in the meetings that count on the day-to-day. She talking about the day-to-day. I'm not. Anybody seen me before? No, and I know I'm on the ground. So we need to figure out how to make sure that the kids at Rich East gonna be okay in this transition. What we gonna do about this building, because a lot of people built this building. They have attachment to this building. We are from this community. We just built Central just a few years ago. No, you don't go tear that down. They need a new roof. We need to figure out how to do financing, funding. I'm in meetings. They are so transparent, you cannot tell me that they don't know how to tell you what you need to do to make this a success. That's all I'm saying. Speak to the other people around you so you can get what you need done.
Thank you.
My question is, looking at all your proposals, most of them require a tax increase. We're already in a tax increase with property taxes. Where's the money going thus far? And with anything that you buy, if you do not maintain it, it breaks down. I can't buy a house and my roof start leaking and leave it for 10 years. It's gonna cave in. A lot of what the issues are is poor neglect and poor management by the district. So now you're saying, now we got this deficit that's critical. It was critical 5-10 years ago, and you guys probably never fixed it and patched it up. So how is that moving into another building gonna fix it? Are you guys gonna let that deteriorate as well? Because now you'll have the same issues if you do not maintain the school. So then we moving into a new edifice. What is changing with the curriculum of the schools? We're so far behind from all the other districts. All these other schools are having LPN programs, cosmetology, other technical trades for kids who are not going on to college. We are not keeping up with that demand. Chicago schools are now back rebuilding. They have culinary arts program. You come out as a chef in your senior year. You coming out as a cosmetologist. We are not keeping up with the updates, so we're going to get a new school that looks cute. But what are we teaching our kids and where's that going? Property taxes? We don't want to pay that. Where's the money that we already do pay?
So I think, I think a question is in there, and I'm going to try to answer.
What are you guys doing with the money thus far that we've already paid the taxes?
So part of the issue is you have three facilities, and you don't have enough kids, and so you have to pay to maintain all of these facilities and keep them up and going, and the money goes to that. But if there was some way to find some creative way to become more efficient.
Can I interject right there with that point you're coming at?
Let me finish.
This is what you're saying, like right now.
Let me finish answering the question. If we can find some way to create some more efficiency, it gives us then depth in the curriculum. Right now, we're trying to provide the same thing to everyone across, and it doesn't allow for us to go deep. And so we need to find a way with the support of the community so that we can use the money that's already coming to us more efficiently so that we can go deeper. Now in terms of the facilities, I believe you started in July. This is my end of my second year, and we have given you information about where you are and what's going on and what's happening. And we have put facility plans in place. We're just informing you of the struggles that we see so that you understand what we're dealing with.
You haven't answered where the money is going, why you have to maintain facilities. That's one of the questions. How did we get to this point? Why haven't the facilities been maintained? And then on top of that,
You've had,
Hold on, I'm not done with that thought. District 162 is rocking with financial grants. They have a personal staff doing nothing but grant applications to get $450 million every year, every fiscal year to help those kids and help that district. Why isn't there someone on staff between 3 schools that's strictly not getting grant funding? The money is there. It's no way that we should not have grants to help offset these costs. 162 Blondine is getting, she getting nothing but grants to keep our district at high capacity.
We just
59 million.
We just hired a grant writer. We do have a grant
You
writer.
just heard, why haven't they been in place up until this?
I can't answer questions to the things that I wasn't here for.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure that you understand that we understand that these are issues and that we're working on them. This is just the end of year 2 from here. And so we're making those corrections. There has been deferred maintenance. And so, you know, one of the issues when I started here, there wasn't a buildings and grounds person hired. There was nobody watching the buildings. And so we were able to hire that person. And now we have somebody who's paying attention to those things. So those things are in place now. And my job is to make sure that I inform you of where we are and the issues that we're coming up against. Oh, actually, she's been waiting for a while. Yeah, let's wait. She was one of the first questions.
Hi, my name is Betty Owens, and I have served on the board for 16 years, starting in 2001 up until 2017 when I decided I just wanted here. I have seen a lot of changes take place in this district that were not good. We were on a path to perfection, for improvement, for the maintenance of our buildings. We did a massive life safety improvement plan, and we had a plan in place that had it kept up with maintenance, we wouldn't have all these issues with roofs, with roads, this and that, and machinery or whatever breaking down. As you change superintendents and you change our staff all of the time, you lose something. Because nobody knows the history, nobody's paying attention to what happened, what led to this, that, and the other. That's one of the reasons why our buildings are in such poor array, and we have not had a building and grounds person, and we haven't had a business manager to oversee all of that.
That's correct.
One after the other. And from this, and from that, and from this. Okay, now, I want to talk about Lincoln Way. Some years ago, we had the biggest battle with Lincoln Way because they did not want to be in the same athletic division with our kids. And to this day, they're not. They don't come over here. They didn't want to come over here, and they didn't want us.
They don't play the same conference. No.
I know, and the reason why is
they don't think we're good enough.
Absolutely.
They disrespect our community and our students.
That's exactly what I'm saying, and that's why I do not want to go over there and save them. And that's all it would be. God bless the child that has his own. Let us build our own schools and make them state-of-the-art. We can do it. And like this young lady said about grants, there are plenty of grants available for life safety improvements. And we need to go after the money and do what we can for our community. I don't want to see deserts out here. That is ridiculous. I don't want to spend one day. I hate going over there to shopping. There's a lot of to shop and get what we want or go online. But some of you remember they did not want us over there. To this day, we do not play up to
You know that's not everyone's feeling.
I got an athletic competition, academic competition.
I don't feel that way at all.
So I just want to say that forget about ours.
All right, I have time for a couple more questions. A couple more. Right here.
If you need help with finding grants for money, go and talk to the superintendent of 163.
Our kids in our own community.
Thank you.
They double the size of their middle school on grants.
Okay, thank you.
safety. But you may not know that because you weren't here when we didn't have that library. They like to always take down and a whole building.
Okay, I think we can do that. I think we should keep our kids in our own community. To kind of piggyback off what you were saying about they don't want us over there. If we know that fights go on at our schools every day, now, do you think the police over there is going to let them get away with our police, let them get away with Hickory Richmond Park? They will not. And kids make mistakes, and we know they fight and they carry on and do some things like that. And I feel they're going to be, they don't want us over there anyway, so they're going to be treating them harder, locking them up, and things like that. Then, because of the fighting and stuff like that, they're not going to, where our police know who in the community does what. We go over there, they get into fights and stuff like that, which kids do. They're going to be locking our kids up. And a lot of parents are going to be going down to the police station to get them. Not to say it's right, but kids do that. They're going to have to be bussed over there. And if they bus, we know these kids, they're late. They're going to be missing buses. So if they miss buses, how are they going to get to school? They can't walk over there, so then you're going to have a much larger absenteeism for the school. I mean, the curriculum, we need to work on why our scores are not like the other schools in the area and stuff like that. We need to work on our teachers and doing better with that. But I think option 6 is out. I vote for 3B.
Good evening, everyone.
This is going to be the last comment for the evening. You can ask me.
I think our priorities are out of place. Our first priority, and the first priority of every school district in America, is restore excellence in public education, where it is needed most. In Chicago's South Suburban, predominantly black communities of color, and in particular, District 227 here where we live. Nothing is like having a vision, and our vision should be based upon our needs. I used to teach at Prairie State College and saw these kids come into these schools and couldn't pass the ACT test. And they had to spend a year getting prepared for college, to take regular college courses. That should be our goal. When we live in a school district where nobody wants to come who value education and buy a home, where only 12 to 15% of these kids can pass the ACT test when they finish college. When they finish high school. And now our focus is on moving to another county, 3 type schools. That should not be our focus. Our focus should be about restoring excellence in public education. Our focus should be about having a vision. Our focus should be about positive educational leadership. Our focus should be about developing parent and community leadership, which we have had a board who are not interested in that. They don't even want to hear from the community at all. That's why I came here, because I thought I could put in a word for representing our community. And our community's most basic need is to restore excellence in these schools so that our children can have a future. Our children is our future. And when we are not about that, we're not about much. This does not come from just in order to do this, it can't come from just the superintendent. It can't come from just the board who don't know how. And I'm blocking, when I was on this board for 8 years, blocking progress rather than improving educational outcomes for all children. Because they weren't in it for the right reasons. They were not about employing their oath, their role, and their common responsibilities to improve student performance levels. They were only about themselves and their own private interest rather than standing for the public good, the common welfare. That's why I came to the board. I came to the board to give back to my community, not take from it. And that will continue to be my purpose on this board. I don't need to be on a school board to take from this community. I need to be on this school board to improve educational outcomes for children. I don't need to be on this school board in order to sue the school for $1 million based on some trumped up charges. These are the kind of people we still have on the school board who know about parties, are not about children, are not about excellence in public education, abandon their oath, role, and public duties to these children who don't put the children first. And wake up, community. Wake up, community. Yes. This is our fault. When you keep selecting these same people,
Thank you, Dr. Morgan. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. If you have any further questions, I will stay here until this room clears out. Thank you all for your input. We truly, truly appreciate it. Thank you so much.